everyone, welcome to episode 2. Here we are talking about enablement within your own company today. What does that look like? What are the sizings? What are the differences? How many people do you actually need versus how many people do you want? So again, I'm back here with my series promoter, Miss Ashton Williams. Ashton, what's up?
Hey, so happy to see you second week in a row.
Heck yeah. Yes, this is so great. I love it. Great responses from that first video. I loved how people were getting engaged. That path to enablement was super huge. If you have not seen that, go back into my LinkedIn, or you can go to my YouTube page and go ahead and click on episode 1 there as well. But we're going to jump in today into enablement within your community. All right, so Ashton, first thing up, everybody wants to know, and I think that there's not a defined ratio yet for enablement, but what does sizing and staffing actually look like? I know we've got self-proclaimed people that are out there saying, yep, this is the ratio, I know what it is, this is how we need to be. And you have those strong believers like me that say 1 is not enough, 2 is okay, 3 would be even better. What are your takes on it? What does sizing look like for you in staffing?
Yeah, so I think the part that makes this hard is that every enabler's scope is different, right? If you're an enabler who doesn't have a product marketing team, for example, one person is probably not doing it all,
Yeah.
right? I think even the product marketers who don't have enablement are like, imagine if we were 1 to 50, how would that work? I think defining the scope of what enablement does and doesn't do is the first step. And I think we always forget to say this: enablement is one to many. Management is 1 to 1. A lot of companies hire enablers and expect them to be 1 to 1 coaches. If you expect that, then the ratio can't be very high, and we also can't do very much 1 to many. Not to say that we don't coach or work with people, because of course, those are the things that give us the feels in the job too. But our job is to do 1 to many. How do we impact the masses, at scale? And with that being said, the scope of your job changes of what that impact looks like.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I want to reiterate 2 different things that you talked about here. 1, enablement does not do everything. So really scope out what your department does. One of the things that I will give my current company with is we each had focus areas, but we knew exactly where those boundaries were, which was great. And yes, those lines were a little blurred here or there, but at the same time though, we knew exactly what lane to stay in. And I know with some recent changes and restructures, those lines are even more defined than they were previously. So that is huge. Always scope out your own department. And then on the other hand, understanding who your customer base is. If you think about it, are you only serving the BDRs? Are you only serving the CSNs? Are you only serving your AEs? Who all are you serving? Really helps ramp up that customer base of who do I work for? Who do I need to serve? And who do I need to make all my content for and be able to assist at a drop of a hat?
Well, and I think we forget to say this too, right? Like, it's not just who you're serving. You could be 1 person to 10 people, but if each of those 10 people do a different job,
yes,
that's a lot that you have to know and stay in the know on. Or if you have a team, it depends on your hiring profile, right? I came from a company where we hired fresh out of school. I wasn't just teaching people my product. I was teaching them how to work professionally, how to sell for the very first time, how to manage a sales cycle, sales map. Like, that was a huge undertaking. Onboarding alone was just a forever project that was huge, versus if your hiring profile is something where they're more experienced, or they're coming to you with only product gaps and they maybe need to learn your process, but they've sold before, or vice versa. And so who you're hiring and what the hiring profile is for that business, the rotating door, how fast or how long are people staying with you? Because if you're constantly onboarding, you have a lot of work ahead of you in addition to the regular stuff. And then how has your company set you up to be proactive versus reactive? The way that we're set up now is each of my hires has a team that they support, right? So they know who their customer is. And the reason for that is it allows them to also be reactive. In those weekly meetings with managers, they go, what are we struggling with? What can I build on the fly that's going to help you now? In addition to thinking about the bigger picture of what can we be proactive about. Now, if you have fewer people, that reactive ratio is going to go away, and your manager's got to know how to train and coach and figure that out. And so it just depends on kind of at your company, what's the higher impact thing and how many people and what's their experience. It also changes, like if you have managers who have trained and coached before versus new managers, it's totally different, right? What you're going to need to do.
Yeah. So you hit on this, you talked about the ratio of proactive and reactive work. I'm curious what your thoughts are on where should that balance be between? Is it a 50-50 split, 60-40? Where do you see that laying out for you?
I know, I feel like I'm going to live in the gray area like throughout this whole podcast, but what I will say is this. I worked at a company where we were stable. Our business didn't change very much. Our competitors were the same. We understood our sales process and sales cycle. And so most of what we were doing was optimization. Mm-hmm. And that meant that reactive training was actually more important. I needed to be there with my manager and see where are we struggling, because I knew our process, our business, our competitors, none of that was changing. So the only thing we could do was, have more leads or be better at converting them. And we focused on that conversion, which meant I was doing a lot of one-to-one coaching. I was coaching managers. I was doing a lot of what's your goal this week and how can we help? How do we refresh people on these things? And not to say that you're not going to do that always, but I had to be able to be nimble because of the nature of that business. I'm now in a business where my industry, my competitors, everything is changing. Being proactive is so important. I have to go, hey, we're launching a product, and in 2 weeks, the landscape might change, and I have to be ready for that. And we have to arm everyone because they need to hit goal next quarter on this new thing that's coming. So I think it depends on where your business is at in terms of stage of growth, industry, and how consistent your revenue is and how forecastable it is, right? It depends on what's going to make the impact there. I, however, will say that dream state is when enablement is really doing only 20% reactive and the rest is proactive. But I don't think I've worked anywhere where that's really true.
I could definitely attest. My boss currently right now loves the 70-30 model, which is great. Yeah. I don't know, 80-20. That's where she wants us to be. But I could definitely tell you from experience here, I'm probably living on the 60-40 mark, and 40% is definitely all the reactive stuff. So no matter how much we try to plan for it, that's always the hardest thing on that too. I think this is a great segue into, we can jump around into the needs and wants, but as we're talking about what is the ratio and what is the scope of proactive and reactive, let's kind of dive in, I think, to what does a charter look like for enablement? And I know, Ashton, you told me ahead of time, hey, I don't know about that one.
I always butcher it. I just always butcher it.
But I can easily talk on this one too. So, and I will say I'm not a pro at charters. So that I know that there are others out there that are 10 times easier and smarter when it comes down to a charter. But I think the best thing to do is the easiest way for me to define a charter is it's your roadmap. This is what you're available to do during this time frame, during these milestones, and you'll be able to deliver X amount of different products. If you think about it, you're going to a restaurant type of thing. I want a burger, but the burger isn't available until 30 days. Okay, cool. Well, then I'll get my burger in 30 days. I'll do a hot dog in the first time. And then, I want that chicken fried steak later. God, I'm actually kind of hungry at this point. But
I was like, chicken fried steak, yes.
It sounds good with a big side of mashed potatoes. But knowing that that's your 90-day meal when you're going down to those things, that's kind of what's now on the menu for everybody to pick through. Do I want a hot dog, hamburger, or chicken fried steak? But those do come at gradual different times. And I think that's an easier way to look at a charter, is that you are committing to making sure that that product and those type of things are available during these milestones, and that you're also allowing time to maybe add in a couple extra sides. Here's a reactive just-in-time side of French fries, or here's a reactive side of onion rings, whatever it might be. You have that extra availability in your roadmap and in your charter to deliver to your customers, your leadership, the rest of your reps, and allows, again, for that just-in-time, reactive training that we're talking about. Something new came up, client changed, or competitor came out of nowhere, or new product just launched. We got to be ready for that. And so I think having that availability of that reactive stuff in our charter and having those defined priorities actually already made helps us also prioritize a lot of our projects to say, I don't have time for that this quarter, or I don't have time for that in the next 90 days. I can guarantee work towards this, or this also has to give. And that also helps your happiness and your bandwidth for the rest of your team.
For sure. And I'll say this, I'm not a fan of the word charter. It just sounds really like, code for have a business plan, right? What's the impact you're trying to make? What are the services your team is going to offer? Help other people understand what you do and how to leverage your team effectively. And that allows you to say, okay, you'd like me to run this reactive training on, I don't know, social styles this week. Well, I also had your onboarding plan for next week. We're going to take a week off of that. Are you okay with pushing that back? But your charter also allows you to do a couple things, right? Your service model. So what's tier 1 support where I'm going to own it. I'm going to build your onboarding and bring it end to end versus tier 3 support where I'm like, hey manager, this sounds like a coaching effort. I'm going to provide you a scorecard and go. It also allows you to communicate to the greater organization where, enablement can be so gray and so fuzzy. Some of those rules of engagement, some of those lines in the sand, and some of the places where it's okay that we're gray and we know, and that's all right. And we're going to stay that way for the nature of this task or this role. I find that my hesitance with calling it a charter is a charter feels static to me. And I know that might not be the truth. It's just how it feels. The word feels like something that doesn't really change. Whereas we have a business plan that on a quarterly basis, it's changing, it's growing. What I thought I was going to do, maybe something else came up and we deprioritize and we move things around. So I love that you call it a roadmap because it's true. It's what I'm going to deliver when and the resources I'm going to need to get there and a process for how, if we need to prioritize something else, what that looks like.
Yeah, roadmap is the easiest way, I think, for any of us to really look at, especially as we're starting to plan. If you need more staffing or if you need additional headcount, when it comes down to that, what the business plan or the business request is. Hey, I have X amount of projects that are due. I keep deprioritizing half of these other projects because of reactive work here. Obviously, our headcount needs to increase, or we need to start evaluating what the actual asks are and reevaluating the scope of enablement. So if you look at it, it all goes back hand in hand, and really that roadmap gets you from point A to point B, and then point B to point C going down the road next time. So
yeah. And I think no matter what you call it, roadmap, charter, whatever it is, even if you've just started, it's nothing but a piece of paper with your metrics on it.
Yes.
And you're at a good start. I think what I use our kind of business plan, we use a landing page essentially internally where it says what does my team do? What are we about? Who do we service? What's the type of support you can ask for? What are the type of services we provide? And we have a Kanban board of all the projects in flight as well as a parking lot of things that we've got your request, but it's not on the roadmap yet. And so that is one living, breathing thing. But what it has is the metrics that we're tied to so that when we're prioritizing or deprioritizing, we're able to say, this is the impact that you wanted or that we agreed on based on the goals of the business. This impact is going to be compromised by taking on this project. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Is that something we want to do? And it's really clear and open. And then it also helps really train other people on how to ask for things, right? They're oh, you handle ramp and that's super important and critical. I know exactly that this request, we can add this to onboarding and I'm actually going to help you and me at the same time. This is a training that everyone should have. Great. And I'm cool, perfect. We're aligned.
Totally off topic, but I love that you emphasize that you guys use Kanban. I think you said Kanban. Whatever. Yeah. I don't care what.
Oh, yeah. Kanban.
We use Scrum. I love Kanban too. I love it all. Project management, sweet spot for me. Just get it done. That's my motto. Just get it done. Beautiful. So we talked about, kind of what that roadmap looks like and how do we scale, and if we're deprioritizing a lot of projects or not able to fit them all in on what we're doing. We mentioned briefly, I think I touched on this about the headcount, adding that additional headcount down on the roadmap or down the road on there. Let's talk about a little bit of, kind of the growth plans for an enablement team and really deciphering between the need of an extra enabler or the want of actually adding another person to the team. So I want to hear your insights. What is a need and a want?
Well, I'm going to say, as someone who this year just got approved a headcount of about 5 people, I know a little bit about this.
You're the right person for the job on that one.
Yeah, and also I've been in a role where I did not get a headcount at all, and I was a team of 1 for 2 years. So I think the difference is how you communicate impact. I can't stress this enough. It's about impact. You want this impact. I'm capable of X. And the only way for you to know truly when you need another person for real and to really illustrate their value is to be able to say, these are all the things that will get done if you bring this person on. If these things are of value, great, bring them. If they're not, I'm not doing them because it's not possible.
Yeah.
Whereas I think our habit is just to try to do everything. And realistically, you're not supporting your business, and they don't know that, you know, you're doing all this work, or that you're being a one-man band for all of that. And I think there's a sort of like pride flag we try to fly there, and it sucks because it stops us from being strategic. If I hire someone, I want my new hire to tell me when they're at capacity. I want them to tell me that they're working till 9 p.m. so that I can help either understand this is a prioritization issue, or do I in fact need to say, there's a couple things here we cannot get done. Yeah. And that's my responsibility as a manager. Just like in enablement, it's your responsibility to the business to say, these are the things that aren't going to get done well. And it's important that we do them well. And so based on that, I can kind of forecast. What I was able to do with my team in terms of the ask and the way that we structured it is onboarding. We're rapid growth, right? So onboarding is just super important. I mean, it's important always, but when you're scaling, it's mission critical. And then we also go to market, because when you're scaling quickly and launching new product, that's also mission critical. And then we have kind of, you know, as you get bigger, it's harder for people to stay in the know. And there's that everboarding and learning that would normally happen through osmosis that we realize is not going to happen, right? And so there's going to be knowledge gaps. There's going to be skills we missed. There's going to be things we didn't know people didn't know. And that's its own project. And those are only 3 things. That doesn't include coaching, playbooks, content, you know, internal comms, actually running the training, working with managers if you need to, all the people that you're going to promote into new jobs. You have to have a different kind of onboarding for them. So there's a lot that can be lifted. And what I was able to do is go, like, based on our goals, these are the things that I think if we lift, and I mean, I'm making an educated guess, that are going to have the highest impact based on our company goals. And based on these goals, this thing here can happen with an additional person. This thing cannot.
Yes.
And being able to have that conversation is critical.
I think the biggest call out too, I just want to reiterate, because I had this like self epiphany this last year. I was a yes man. People would always come to me, didn't matter what time of day or night. Hey, I need this done, and can I get it done by tomorrow? Yeah, sure. I'll stay up till 2 a.m. working on this project for you to get it done by then. And that was what was killing me. And I could tell that instantly I became completely frustrated. I wasn't getting any of my projects done that I actually needed to get done. And so I was not prioritizing my work, and I was jeopardizing basically my own credibility, in a sense of that no matter what I did, people just throw shit at me. It wasn't anything that was mission critical, as you said, but it was just stuff that people wanted somebody else to do, essentially. And so
this is like a sidebar for mental health, that setting boundaries is good for you and the business.
Yes.
It also stops someone from having to micromanage. And honestly, in enablement, things take long, right? We talk about this as like, we are the construction site that's a big dig and hole for, you know, a year or two. And all of a sudden there's a condo.
Yes.
And nobody thinks that anything's happening. We're like, this construction site's been here forever. This road's been under construction forever. And then all of a sudden there's like a bridge you never thought was going to be there. And you're like, oh, that happened fast. But people only see the condo, or the people only see the bridge, right? They don't see all the other stuff. And so it's so important to go deep on a couple things and do them really, really well. So you don't have to keep coming back to them, because I think, you know, anyone who's been at a high growth, you've built everything, but it's all okay.
Yeah.
And it requires maintenance on this crazy level that it becomes too big. And really, it should have just been done the first time. We were like, we have a wonderful onboarding. Our go-to-market strategy is next, right? Versus trying to do everything at once, getting stretched thin, and nothing being not chaos.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's exactly that growth that you need to talk about. Is it chaos? Is it organized chaos, or is it organized? And I think there's where that happy medium starts to lay in, and really try to dive in, prioritize those projects. Again, find the ROI of what can and cannot be done with or without an additional headcount. Understanding where the different areas are that are actually needed, and don't waste additional headcount on a spot where you just want somebody else to do that job. Like, really focus in on the direct needs. And I think that's where, like, sometimes is a big point for some people, is they just want that extra position so they don't have to do the work. So I mean,
Yeah, and
I
also
feel
like
it.
set someone up for success, right? Like
Exactly.
I was thrilled to bring on new people and go, this is the thing you're gonna own, right? This has this impact and it's yours to take and make wonderful. I don't want to go, here's all the stuff I'm not balancing and here you go. Like that's not how you want to grow.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we're not talking about here is relying on outside help. Sometimes you don't have the budget or the sustainable work for headcount, right? You're going to onboard really fast now and it's going to slow down. And so having someone to own that is maybe not all the time needed, but we really hesitate in spending money outside of our team. And we think that if we build everything ourselves, it's great. And sometimes you have to prioritize speed and efficiency and quality over your headcount. Right. So, I would love to build a methodology and playbook, but if I needed it for Q1 so that by Q4 we hit goal, I might buy it. And that's okay because I'm choosing that speed. But I have to be able to come back to those metrics and say, this spend will equal this outcome earlier than if we wait.
Yeah, I totally agree. And on your point of like outsourcing, you don't have to outsource outside your four walls of your company. My first series, bridging the gap, I really took a deeper dive on how do we work with those extra departments that are within our own companies. Enablement and marketing should be very, very hand in hand with brand standards, good decks, making sure that the content is great. If you need that extra help of curation, provide the information that's needed to your marketer and become best friends with your marketing team. So that way, when you do need that additional help or you do come across a big event or something like that you just can't handle right now by yourself, hopefully marketing has at least a little bit of breath air to, contribute to your project as well and try to assist you that way too. So look within your four walls, obviously, if you're trying to be budget conscious, but yeah. I think outsourcing is very underrated. There's tons of companies out there that do it. Yes, they are pricey, but again, what is the value that they're bringing to the table? Speed, perfection, the expertise behind the curtains too. So
and sometimes alignment comes faster, right?
exactly.
Like if you're a team of one and you have to align a bunch of stakeholders for a project, but if you hired a consultant, everyone would get in line quicker. That's actually one of those like intangible wins that like, not only is this going to happen faster, but we're all going to be on board faster. And therefore we're going to implement and continue with this project and not have it die. And I think we also often underestimate that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And Ashton, again, you segued perfectly into our next little topic here, the buy-in. What is buy-in and why does it matter? You mentioned, getting our stakeholders all on board, making sure that they're all aligned. What is that in your eyes? Who should we be getting our buy-in from and our alignment with and making sure that, we are executing to the fullest extent of our need?
Yeah. So this is a hairy one. So one, it depends on where you report into.
Sure.
I have a sales background, so reporting into sales is always felt pretty natural for me.
Yep.
But maybe you report into marketing, maybe you report right into kind of a revenue leader of sorts. You need an executive sponsor for whatever you do. It doesn't matter what the project is, there needs to be an executive sponsor. So whether that's your direct boss, whether that's whoever the pain is going to be felt the most by, you need someone to sign off and say, as an executive, like I sponsor the outcome of this, so that when you need things or when big decisions need to be made, they can happen quickly. You also then need the buy-in of your stakeholders, which are your managers often, sometimes, the teams you support, those individual contributors, often marketing or finance. You need to be able to align everyone that like this project is impact for all. And I think when we talk about buy-in doesn't mean that everyone agrees. It means that everyone is committed to the same outcome. I can disagree with a project and say, but you know what? I do see that this outcome is growth. And if that's going to get there, awesome. And it doesn't have to be consensus, right? It needs to be commitment. And we fail to get commitment. And sometimes that's out of fear. Sometimes that's like, we don't actually know what's going on with that team. And instead of looking inward and going, I need to actually know, does this matter for all these teams? And if it doesn't, maybe I need to deprioritize this project myself, right? Own that. How many times have you been like, I want to build this incredible thing. It's so fun. And you're like, but no one cares.
Yeah.
And so you did all this work and it didn't matter, right? And there was a bunch of other stuff you could have done to be impact focused. And so I think when you get buy-in, it's actually everyone understands the outcomes that we're driving towards, whether they agree, whether they're involved a lot or a little, they know what they need to lift in order to get there. And you are curating, coordinating, and making sure that you're responsible for that impact, because you're going to report that back so that your next projects, when everyone gets involved, they trust, right?
Mic drop. I'm done. You like, nailed that one. Right on the money there. That's exactly right. I'm not even gonna touch on that. Yeah. Seriously, like, be the Rosetta Stone. Thanks, Russell. Yeah, be the Rosetta Stone. Be able to talk to anybody, get the buy-in from everybody. Again, it's the commitment to work on the project, not the agreement of the,
Well, I think that's also why we say enablement is still sales.
Yeah.
You are internally selling all the time, right? It doesn't go away because you're not customer facing. It doesn't matter if you're servicing partners or customer success, your ability to sell ideas, because you're really nobody's boss.
Yeah.
It means you have to be almost like an account manager. I need to understand your pain. I need to understand how I can make it easier. You have to feel like I'm on your team, which I should be if I'm a great enabler. And then I have to sell this idea, right? And get everyone on board. And it's no small feat as your company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, or your teams get more dispersed, or we go into a pandemic where you don't see each other face to face.
On the flip side, it doesn't have to be all sales. Again, you're marketing, you're designing the content to really fit your target audience. So no matter how you want to look at it, you need to know your customers are internal. They're not customer facing. Mm-hmm. They're right there working alongside you. So spot on. Ashton, this is huge. I mean, I know that this was a very like gray lined, blurred vision type of session that we did here today. I mean, there's just so many what ifs and this or that, or what if this or what if that. So if you guys have questions, post them in the comments. Ashton and I will be watching those. Please, please, please ask away. We want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to give you recommendations. And if we can't give you a solid recommendation, there's an entire community out there that we can ask that you can be part of as well. And we can definitely go ahead and drive those questions there to get you the responses and answers that you're actually looking for. So I appreciate this, Ashton. Closing thoughts, go for it.
I would say closing thoughts. So like key takeaways are, it's going to change. So what you actually need to understand is, what are your business's priorities? How fast are you going to grow? And where is the impact that you need to make? And you'll be able to do and strategize all of these other things with limited knowledge, as long as you really understand where the prize lies. Yeah.
Impact. I can't say it enough. Impact is where we should all live. So find out how you're impacting your company. If you don't understand or don't know what you're doing to provide that impact, probably time to do a gut check. So definitely take a reevaluation tip right there. But thank you, Ashton. Again, another successful week. Episode 2. We are done here. This is great. Next week, we're going specifically deep dive into the roles of enablement. We're starting out right now with my very first job that introduced me into enablement, which was an enablement coordinator. And then on the flip side of that, you might also heard them as enablement associates as well. So understanding where those two come in and what they do, what their job is, what are their primary functions? How do you staff for one of those? What does all that look like? Next week on episode 3, stay tuned with Ashton and I. See you guys all next Monday.